how the process of building it, the industry that was developed in the sense of making those things, and how Bezalel taught the people how to build the different things. So it's going to be exciting in the sense of seeing what Moses, the instructions Moses was given on the mount that first 40 days when he was up there, when he was given the details of what he should do, that it's seeing it come to fruition. If you've ever thought about building a house, you dream about it, you sketch it out, you talk about it, you look at the current place you're in and say, we don't want it like this, and then you put it on paper, or somebody, or you, if you have those skills, you actually design the house, you tell the builder where you want each 2x4 kind of thing, and then the day that they start construction on it, you go out there and look at that dirt just before they stick a shovel in it or bring that heavy-duty equipment out that starts digging. You go, wow, there's going to be a house here someday. And you watch that house grow up. I've had the opportunity and blessing to build a house 3 times. I haven't got it right yet. I'm probably going to build it again sometime. But the point is, it was just a neat thing to watch as it grew. And I took pictures and have all these plans of making those pictures into a sequence with a beautiful epic music as you see it grow up. I haven't done that yet, but it's something that's kind of neat to watch it grow up and then move into. This picture here that I have on the opening slide, you see a mass of people. Unfortunately, there's no video, there's no pictures of what took place there, but at the end of this morning's lesson, we're going to see the significance of that artistic rendering of all these people there. There was a lot of people there. And so you're going to see this mass of people that are following Moses coming out of Egypt as they mature into a nation, from just a tribe, just a bunch of people, to those working together. That's going to be one of our lessons that we need to take away from that as we look at our congregation here and how we work together as the Lord's church. So before we get started, let's have a prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're so grateful that we have this morning, that you've given us this life to be able to come and study your word, in the next hour to worship you. We're so grateful for the blessings you've given us, both individually and to this congregation. The talents of all the people in this congregation, the abilities of each member to add to in a way that causes this congregation to glorify you in this area. We're so grateful for your Son who died upon the cross. And in Christ's name we pray. Amen. Chapter 37. It's going to start out with the Ark of the Agreement being made. Got kind of a different visual aid to help today. Get in the right position. This is a replica of what it could have been looking like. And so as we read through this, my intent is to try to build it in front of you. The Bezalel, starts out in verse 1, made the ark of acacia wood. It was 45 inches long, 27 inches wide, and 27 inches high. Obviously, this is not built to scale. All right, this is a smaller version, but built to a small scale. He covered it both inside and out with pure gold, and he put a gold strip around it, kind of thing. The inside is not gold, thank goodness. It's only some felt, I think. So he made a very nice thing. Then he made poles. Then he made 4 gold rings for it and attached it to the 4 feet. So you can see where the gold rings are. Then he made poles of acacia wood and covered them with gold. Looks like gold. I guarantee you it's not gold. So they go through here like this. And so you can see how it could be carried. He put the poles through the rings on each side. Oops, let me just hold it, I guess. He put the poles through the rings on each side of the ark to carry it. Then he made a lid of pure gold. He made a lid of pure gold. And that was 45 inches long and 27 inches wide. Then Bezalel hammered gold to make 2 creatures with wings and attached them to each end of the lid. He made one creature on one end of the lid and the other creature on the other end. He attached them to the lid so that it would be one piece. The creature's wings were spread upward, covering the lid, and the creatures faced each other across the lid. So you can get a pretty good visual of what it looked like at the time. King James Version calls this the mercy seat. And so you would be able to carry it with the poles. And what happens if you touch the Ark of the Covenant? Yeah, I got a thumbs down. That's what happened. You were dead, kind of thing. My wife showed this in her class, and the kids had fun carrying the box with the poles, which was kind of cool. If you'd like to come and see it a little bit later, you're welcome to come up and take a look at it. It also has, in this particular kit that I have a replica of the Ten Commandments and the manna and the Aaron's rod that Bud did. But we're not going to put it in right now because we're not at that point yet where we put that in yet. So the next thing he built was the table. Then he made the table of acacia wood. It was 36 inches long, 18 inches wide, and 27 inches high. He covered it with pure gold and put a gold strip around it. He made a frame 3 inches high and that stood up around the edge, and he put a gold strip around it. Then he made 4 gold rings for the table and attached them to the 4 corners of the table where the 4 legs were. The rings were put close to the frame around the top of the table because they held the poles for carrying it. The poles for carrying the table were made of acacia wood and were covered with gold. He made of pure gold all the things that were used on the table, the plates, bowls, cups, and jars used for pouring the drink offering. All pure gold. You can see why he would put those rings for the poles up near the frame of it. If you like building things, you can see why he would put that there, because that's structurally sound. Easy to carry, portable, grab the poles and go kind of thing. Next, he built the lampstand. Then he made the lampstand of pure gold, hammering out its base and stand. Its flower-like cups, buds, and petals were joined together in one piece with the base and stand. The petals, if you will, the buds, the King James uses the word knops, K-N-O-P-S. I had looked that up. It's just kind of like an ornamental ball. You can take a rope and you can knot it in such a way, and it just looks really ornate and kind of neat. And so this calls it bud translation and petals, which were joined together. So it's just ornamental. It's just very nice and ornate. 6 branches went out from the sides of the lampstand, 3 on one side and 3 on the other. Each branch had 3 cups shaped like almond flowers. And each cup had a bud and a petal. Each of the 6 branches going from the lampstand was the same. There were 4 more cups shaped like almond flowers on the lampstand itself, each with its buds and petals. 3 pairs of branches went out from the lampstand. A bud was under the place where each pair was attached to the lampstand. Each of the 6 branches going out from the lampstand was the same. The buds, branches, and lampstands were all, this is pretty cool, all one piece of pure hammered gold. He made 7 pure gold lampstands for this lampstand. And he made pure gold wick, trimmers, and trays. King James calls them snuffers. I guess that's, in the old days you'd snuff out the candle with the little cup. He used about 75 pounds of pure gold to make the lampstand and all the things that go in it. So I did an approximation. I wanted to find out what the cost of gold was today. It's like $1,788 an ounce or so, give or take. And now I'm just getting this off of Google, so you know how accurate Google can be. And so when somebody can check my math, but I think there's 16 ounces to a pound. And so when you multiply all that together, you come up with a little over 2.1 million for that. I'm just impressed that it would be that much. Yes, Shelby, I know your name today. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Shelby's making a comment about pure gold is pretty soft metal. Yes, I'm not sure how they did it. I'm sure they had to add some kind of alloy to it to stiffen it up. I just don't know. He hammered it out with pure gold. I don't know if hammering it makes a difference. Is there somebody here that's into gold hammering? No? Okay. Well, we'll have to wait on the expert. Maybe somebody can look it up on Google to see what they would have added or done, or if it makes any difference when they did it. But that's what it says here. That's a pretty heavy lampstand. And but we really don't have a picture of it or exactly how it would have appeared at the time it got hammered. But pretty expensive in today's dollars. Probably would have been expensive in those dollars back in those days because gold was very valuable to them. The altar for burning incense. Then he made the altar of incense out of acacia wood. It was square, 18 inches long and 18 inches wide. It was 36 inches high. Sounds like my barbecue, doesn't it? Each corner that stuck out like a horn was joined into one piece with the altar. He covered the top and all the sides and the corners with pure gold, and he put gold trim around the altar. He made 2 gold rings and put them below the trim on opposite sides of the altar. These rings held the poles for carrying it. He made the poles of acacia wood and covered with gold. Now, one of the things, just kind of follow up on what Shelby was suggesting about soft gold. This is the burning of incense, so the heat on this is not going to be that high. So then you could effectively put gold on it because you're burning incense. So you got a lower temperature kind of thing going on as you're burning the incense. But wait till we get to the other altar here in just a little bit, and we'll see what he makes that out of. And then it says here in verse 29, then he made the holy olive oil for appointing the priest and the pure, sweet-smelling incense. He made them like a person who mixes perfumes. King James Version uses apothecary. Apothecary, I think that's correct. And of course, perfumes, the person who makes perfumes, I'm not real familiar with, but obviously if you get the wrong ingredients there and you do not get Chanel No. 5, you're not going to be successful in your business. And so you've got to know all the nuances of the different kinds of things you can mix to get to that point of having a particular brand of oil or perfume. An apothecary is one who knows medicines, or the different medicinal purposes, the stuff that medicine can be used for. He knows each plant, each substance that could be utilized that would help us. And so you can see how this is a special perfume, olive oil that's being made, a special incense that someone had to have some knowledge about. And so we know that God gave Bezalel the knowledge, skills, and ability to make this stuff, to be able to show others how to do that. I always wonder if he opened up his own school of trades, College of Bezalel, COB, kind of thing is the letters, and they put it on their T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. And so his students enrolled every year, kind of thing. And so they had the knowledge. God gave them the knowledge to be able to build this stuff. Then we get into the altar for burnt offerings. Then he built the altar for burnt offerings out of acacia wood. The altar was square, 7 1/2 feet long, 7.5 feet wide, and it was 4.5 feet high. He made each corner stick out like a horn, so that the horns and the altar were joined together in one piece. Then he covered the altar with bronze. King James Version uses brass. When you look up how either one is made, they use the same kinds of metal. I have a trivia. I think it's the next one, if I remember correctly. No, it's coming up later. So we'll get to the trivia in just a second. He covered the altar with bronze. He made all the tools of bronze to use on the altar: the pots, shovels, bowls for sprinkling blood, meat forks, and pans for carrying the fire. He made a large bronze screen. Check that screen out up there. To hold the burning wood for the altar, and put it inside the altar under its rim. Halfway up from the bottom, he made bronze rings to hold the poles for carrying the altar, and he put them at the four corners of the screen. Then he made poles of acacia wood and covered them with bronze. He put the poles through the rings on both sides of the altar to carry it. He made the altar of boards and left the inside hollow. So basically, you've got here a great place to you put the fire. You've got the correct airflow coming through it. The fire is going to stay hot, and bronze is able to take higher heat. And so that's the useful material at that time. And so the stuff was built there with bronze. We've moved away from gold, if you will. Oops. And then the bronze bowl. He made the bronze bowl for washing, and he built it on a bronze stand. He used the bronze from mirrors that belonged to the women who served at the entrance to the meeting tent. How many times have you read that and just kind of skipped right along? I think that's significant to note. So there must have been quite a few mirrors out there that had bronze, that were made of bronze rather. And you can take bronze and you can really shiny it up, make it shiny. Now we don't have any understanding what exactly the size was of the bowl, but it was big enough to have water, and they were able to wash themselves. The King James uses the term laver, I think is how you pronounce it, which is just an English word for a bowl, specifically a basin that's used for washing. And so you can read people's speculation of why it was made out of bronze and so forth, but one of the suggestions out there that I found at least attractive to my eyes is that it was probably shiny. They made it very shiny so that the priest would be able to see that they cleaned properly. So that could have been. But the significant thing I want to bring your mind back to is the women who served there donated their bronze mirrors for this bowl. We're going to see in a little bit the different things that some of the men gave versus some of the things that some women gave, and I'm going to bring all that together in an analogy of talents and abilities. So that's just a teaser for the end. We'll get there in a little bit. We moved on to, there's the trivia. Brass is an alloy of copper and zinc. Bronze is a metal alloy consisting of primarily of copper and usually with tin as the main additive, but sometimes with other elements such as those elements there. Higher malleability than zinc or copper. So you can look at the King James, it says brass. Look at New Century Version I'm using that says bronze. You can also, the NIV I believe has bronze. So you can see essentially it's the same metal, if you will. It's just that the different translations have taken it and provided it that way. Both brass and bronze can be shinied up, if you will, polished, and are useful for the things that they used in the bronze bowl or the laver. The courtyard of the holy tent. Take a look at that. You know, last Sunday we talked about that tent there, the meeting tent, and how it was built and layered over it. Now they're going to put the courtyard around it, or build the courtyard. We haven't really, this is just what it's going to look like here shortly, but they really haven't stood anything up yet. They're just building the components. He made a wall of curtains to form a courtyard around the holy tent. On the south side, the curtains were 150 feet long and were made of fine linen. Now, I thought about the fine linen for a while. How long does fine linen last in the sun and in the weather out there? Unless God gave it some kind of supernatural ability where they never had to replace it. Most likely, they had an industry that kept building these curtains. And as a section would weather, they would replace it. So you had ongoing maintenance of this particular tabernacle, its various components. And so the curtains hung on silver hooks and bands placed on 20 bronze posts with 20 bronze bases. On the north side, the wall of curtains was also 150 feet long, and it hung on silver hooks and bands on 20 posts with 20 bronze bases. So you can see the industry behind all this. The people that had the skills to make the bronze. You know, bronze just doesn't appear, well, unless you go to Home Depot. You just, it's on the shelf, you get it off. Bronze is does not happen. You've got to get the minerals from the earth. You've got to bake it, cook it, heat it up, melt it, and then you got to do something else to make it usable. And then when it's usable, someone else who's skilled at it takes it and makes it into a base. There's a big process behind it. My favorite saying is that most kids today think chicken comes in a cellophane wrapper. It doesn't. It comes with feathers originally. And so we just need to kind of let our minds look at the material they build and then see that chain behind there of the industry that these people were involved in. And different people were attracted to different parts of those. I may not like digging like a miner, but there are people that just enjoy digging into the earth like a miner and looking for things. I don't have any interest, but I'm interested in what they find when they bring it out. On the west side of the courtyard, the wall of curtains was 75 feet long. It was held up by silver hooks and bands on 10 posts with 10 bases. The east side was also 75 feet long. On one side of the entry, there was a wall of curtains 22.5 feet long, held up by 3 posts and 3 bases. On the other side of the entry, there was also a wall of curtains 22.5 feet long, held up by 3 posts and 3 bases. And you can get an idea of where that was at the entrance there. The bases for the posts, all the curtains around the courtyard were made of fine linen. Now, just kind of, this is a picture, so it's a lot smaller. It's not actual size, so to say. I should have measured this auditorium, and maybe somebody knows the length of this, but that's a lot of linen curtains. By anyone's estimation, 150 feet, did it say, give or take? That was a bunch of curtains. How long do you think it took to weave those? How long do you think it took to make the threads they used in weaving those fine linens? How long did it take the sheep to grow it? And then the shepherds to shear it. The different folks that turned that hair into thread. How long did that take? The industry is amazing behind that. The bases for the posts were made of bronze. The hooks and the bands on the posts were made of silver, and the tops of the posts were covered with silver also. All the posts in the courtyard had silver bands. The curtain for the entry of the courtyard was made of blue, purple, and red thread and fine linen. Let that sink in for a moment, especially when it says, sewn by a person who could sew well. That left me out. You had to go through the place, and you've seen people in your life and your family, and they've known people that just had this skill. You look at what they did and you go, wow. You take the same tool that they used and you try to replicate that, and you've got a stick figure versus a full-on portrait of Abraham Lincoln. Someone who sews well, they brought in to do this. The curtain was 30 feet long and 7.5 feet wide or high, the same height as the curtains around the courtyard. It was held up by 4 posts and 4 bronze bases. The hooks and the bands on the posts were made of silver, and the top of the posts were covered with silver. All the tent pegs for the holy tent and for the curtains around the courtyard were made of bronze. I don't know if you can see it real well, but when you look at a pretty good close-up, or you get close enough to the page at least to see it, you'll see every post has a rope coming like this, to hold it up. And then there's a peg in the ground. You'll also notice that was used, or at least the artist rendering, and I don't doubt this, to hold up the tents of the different individuals and families. So just for a moment, consider yourself walking to this courtyard, to this tabernacle. There's a lot of ropes holding that tent up, the walls of the tents. And so you could say, well, that's a lot of trip hazards. Yes, I agree with you. There's a lot of trip hazards there. But you got to hold it up somehow. This is a structure that's designed to be portable. And so you needed to be careful where you walked. And I'm sure there were kids that, went and grabbed onto the guy wire, so to say, and hung on them. You weren't watching where you're going. You tripped over the peg. But just think think about the way the people would have to approach. Be careful. Coming through the gates. Even when you look at where the gate is, the entrance rather, it too has ropes coming down holding those posts. So you could go in through where the ropes are. You had to be careful going in. So it's a special place, but it's also a place where you needed very much to be aware of what you were doing at this location. As well as around the people's homes, their tents, they had to be aware of the ropes and the pegs. And so I'm sure that became a part of their life. Watch for the tent peg and don't trip over it. And if you've ever been camping in tents, those tent pegs can reach out and grab your foot and knock you down. Now this, I want to take a little bit of time with this. I just find this list of materials they used impressive. For me, it brings it all together. You go, well, it's just a list of stuff. Yes, it is. It is a list of stuff. It is a list of materials that were requested or commanded by God. It was a list of materials that people willingly gave. An observation was made a while back to me about where did they get all this stuff? What was their supply chain like? And I'm sure they could have gotten some of the stuff from the people surrounding it, the nations, the people that were close in to them. You got to think back at that time. At that time, we really didn't have CNN and all those other cable news and all these people running around with cameras trying to document any news event that they could find. But the people in those lands knew what was going on. You may recall Jethro even came and visited with Moses just after they had arrived at Mount Sinai. And so he had heard the stories. You have people traveling by, the caravans of people, communicating and trading with other people. Stories were told. And so the people knew something was going on here. They knew that something different was happening. And many times supernatural, what God was doing for these people. But yet this material that they gave came from among the people. A lot of stuff like acacia wood, the type of wood they used, where did they get that? Did they bring it with it? You know, I collect things, I've said in the past, I collect wood, you never know when you might need it. And so I got little pieces, big pieces, and eventually they're going to get burnt. It's what usually happens to the stuff I get. Did somebody have a cart full of acacia wood coming out of Egypt? I don't know. I don't know where they got it. But they were able to get it. So they could have traded with the folks around them. The outer skin of the tent, you may recall, the translation of the Hebrew there is some type of aquatic animal skin. Well, there was a Red Sea down just over the hill from them, kind of thing. They could have got it from there. But I just don't know. And I can speculate forever as to how they got the supply chain, but I do know the people gave it. It came from among them. And we'll see this as we read through this list. This is a list of materials used to make the holy tent. A lot of time people just read over this and go zoom, and they're done. I like to take my time and just look at it and dwell upon what this says. Where the agreement was kept. Okay, this is where this holy tent they're building. This thing, this entity right here, is where the holy agreement is kept. Moses ordered the Levites to make this list. Ithamar, son of Aaron, was in charge of keeping it. Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, made everything the Lord commanded Moses. Seems to me this is significant when the scripture says this, and Moses ordered the Levites to make this list. I need to take some time and look at this list. Oholiab, son of Abishmach, of the tribe of Dan, helped him. He could cut designs into metal and stone. He was a designer and also skilled at sewing the blue, purple, and red thread and fine linen. This guy was talented, knowledgeable, and he apparently was a good teacher too. You'd go sit at his feet and learn from him, and you'd want to. You would go and ask him, "Hey, I'm stuck here in this part. How can I get to do this?" And he'll just, "Oh, thank you." And so you're moving on. He's that kind of expert. The total amount of gold used to build the holy tent was presented to the Lord. It weighed over 2,000 pounds as set by the holy place measure. Anybody here have 2,000 pounds of gold? You know, the big thing on TV, sometimes you see advertisements, they want you to buy gold. I don't have any problems with buying gold. I just haven't done it yet. I've got some gold in the house. My wife has, I bought it thinking it was gold, so hopefully it's gold, honey. So, we've got a lot of stuff in our houses that we've bought over the years. I know when my father passed away, he gave me this gold ring that his father wore. And apparently when they were young, they played a game sitting in the basement of their house where they had this rope around where the ring was on, and they would just pass it singing a song or saying something, and then whenever they stopped, they had to guess who had the ring. I think that was the rules. I don't know. I never played it. But it means it's something special to me. I mean, the inscription on it, I can't figure it out. I've been trying to. It's been worn. I don't know how much gold it's in, but it certainly isn't 2,000 pounds. I could have contributed to it if I'd been back there with the gold that I had, but 2,000 pounds is a lot of gold. And if somebody's a math wizard, if you could figure out how much that costs today's money, that would be great. It's $1,788 per ounce. So let me know afterwards. The silver, verse 25, the silver was given by the members of the community who were counted. These are some important numbers. It weighed 7,550 pounds, the silver. It was as set by the holy place measure. All the men, 20 years old or older, were counted. Women don't feel left out. You just read it for what it's worth. because this is important numbers. There were 603,550 men, and each man had to pay 1/5 of an ounce of silver, as set by the holy place measure. That number impresses me. 603,550 men, 20 years old or older. So, anybody want to guess how many women there were? A way of doing it is, if each one had a wife, that's 1.2 million plus of people. Now you notice it's 20 or older. How many were below that age? How many children do they have running around? That's a lot of people. Now you can see why that picture I show at the front shows a mass of people. There were at least just under 2 million people. I think that's a fair estimate. But the men had to, these men 20 years old or older had to pay 1/5 of an ounce of silver. And I don't know if all that silver came from just those men, but someone can calculate 1/5 of an ounce of silver and see if it gets up to 7,550 pounds. But the point is, that's what they had to pay. I guess it was tax on being 20 and older. You know, when you're 16, you want to be 20. Then when you get 20, you say, oh, I got to pay taxes. Of this silver, 7,500 pounds were used to make the 100 bases for the holy tent and for the curtain. 75 pounds of silver in each base. They used 50 pounds of silver to make the hooks for the posts and to cover the tops of the posts and to make the bands on them. This materials list is important to us to understand the extent of this construction that took place. The bronze or brass, which was presented to the Lord, weighed about 5,000 pounds. They used the bronze to make the bases at the entrance of the meeting tent, to make the altar and the bronze screen, and to make all the tools for the altar. This bronze was also used to make bases for the wall of the curtains around the courtyard and bases for the curtains at the entry to the courtyard, as well as to make the tent pegs for the holy tent and the curtains that surrounded the courtyard. Now just let that way, reflect upon the height, the amount of raw material that was required for this. The industry, the different people that were involved in this. Let's see, this materials list goes on here, so sorry, I forgot to click over at the appropriate time. 2 slides worth of materials list and the significance and what they were used for. The analogy I would give, let's see. As I was thinking about this, why do we study the Old Testament? Why do we look at it? It's old. We want to look at things new. Well, when you go back and you make every effort to bring it alive, it means a lot to us today. You took those 2 million people. They went from a tribe, a disorganized kind of, we're just following Moses, to a highly organized, and we haven't got there quite yet, but yet they're transforming into a nation that's following God. God chose these people. The agreement is between Him and these people, not the nations around. Just between Him and the Israelites. It says several things to me. I could go on for the next hour, but I won't. When people come together with a goal or purpose in mind, it's impressive what they can achieve. When people do not come together, chaos and discord reigns. And so people are kind of off in their different ways. You see that in nations. Our nation is going through a rough time. We have gone through a rough time in the past. Civil War, anybody? Where we didn't quite see eye to eye. And what did it create? Chaos, discord, and death. But when we come together for an agreed purpose, we can achieve wonderful things. So how do I bring it down to this level? Well, before I get it to this level, let me get to the level of your family. Everyone has the experience of sometimes our family is just, it's amazing. And other times you're going, what did you give me? The challenge. Now let's bring it to the church as we look forward today. What's the goal of the church? Glorify God and bring souls to Christ. Without that goal, without that purpose, what are we working for? That's our purpose here. Our goal is not to just come and sit during a certain part of the day on Sunday. Our goal is to come and be refreshed. Our goal is to learn what the Scriptures say and be energized by it. Our goal is to come and during worship hour, worship Him from our heart with each member of the congregation, and to praise Him, to sing to Him, to each other, edify one another, and to hear His lesson preached to us, to observe the Lord's Supper and remember His death. That's why we're here on Sunday mornings. And then when we leave here, we are pumped. We are ready to live our life. And the nation around us, the people around us see us. We may not say Jesus to them every hour, every moment of the day, but they see our behavior and the way we react and act. They see just like the nation saw Israel back in those days and told others. As a church, we have a goal in mind. Someday, we're going to move to the Ustick property. I know that it seems like things are going slow. I realize that. All I can tell you is that there is movement in the background that isn't exciting. It's just like trying to read a materials list. 5,000 pounds of this. You're going, oh boy. It's mind-boggling. But there is movement going on. Someday, I believe, it's going to happen. But unless the entire congregation is focused on that someday, and everything we do is filtered through that vision of what we're going to do someday, without neglecting what we're doing today here, with the facility we have, with the talents we have in the congregation, each individual using their talent to their best ability, nothing's going to stop us. The Lord is with us. Faith of what God can do can lead us anywhere. We still have to do our part. We still have to study His Word. We still have to desire to be here with the congregation to worship. And indeed, when you look back at the Israelites, as they started building all these things, they worked together. They became industrious. They built it. And we're going to see next Sunday the teaser of where they get to. And where what we know as the tabernacle, the tent, the holy tent, and the things that began from that point on that we read about in Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and so forth. How it all started. Next Sunday. Thank you for your attention. There'll be a bell here shortly. Any comments until the bell?